Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and yesterday was a wild, wild evening. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I was playing some Baldur's Gate last night, kind of chewing my way through it until I witnessed I witnessed a piece of history, like many people around the world. Now, to understand, ladies and gentlemen, there is a whole slew of presidential assassinations, plots, actual successful attempts, fails that the world talks about to the end of days. Okay, you got Abraham Lincoln, all right? You've got James Garfield, William McKinley, and of course, most importantly, you got JFK. All right, JFK, who, by the way, is pretty much still to this day the topic of multiple conspiracies, theories. And while this is something that obviously true crime channels and everyone always talks about, they try to dig into what effectively happened. Yesterday, we actually witnessed a failed assassination attempt on a president. Yeah, now I'm a Canadian, so normally I don't really get involved in politics, especially American stuff, because I can't vote. So therefore, I really have no skin in the game. But as somebody who basically is affected by who is the president, being a Canadian and living right next to people, yeah, it's freaky. Being somebody that's been in this general area, Pennsylvania, numerous times because, I drive from here in New York all the time, this is still an insane thing to witness. So according to this footage right here, this is Trump at a rally in Meridian, Pennsylvania, which again, it's wild that you're here. So obviously he's given a speech. And, he's just talking, he's looking in a direction and he grabs his ear and he's like, whoa, this seems painful, and instinctively just gets down behind the podium. Everyone actually in the stands actually tries lowering their body, okay? Because at that moment in time, you start hearing pop, 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 pop. And then it gets really serious because those Secret Service fellers, yeah, they're all in there. They're huddling around him in order to protect him from any incoming fire at this point. So this is actually something when I saw on TV, I literally actually had my jaw drop for a second because I immediately, to me, it looked like an actual assassination attempt. So immediately after the Secret Service cleared him, he goes out and does the actual punch into the air, which basically created the biggest meme possible, okay? The actual one image that sealed this man's actual second term in the White House. You can actually see the shot, the framing is perfect. He's got his fist in the air, the flag in the background, the Secret Service individuals going, holy shit, let's get him out of here. Now, big props to the people at the Secret Service and the whole police involved, because literally in a minute, after all the shots were going off, the last few shots you heard in the footage, they actually ended up dispatching the, person behind him, the actual shooter. And at that moment in time, the Secret Service people had picked him up and then basically moved him once they got the all clear that, yeah, all the threats have been basically neutralized. Other than that, he was basically on the ground at that point. So yeah, it was a real scary, wild situation, and it could have very quickly been an actual assassination of an upcoming presidential candidate. Something you would actually literally only see in a movie. It literally happened in front of our eyes for the entire world to see. Now, it's crazy that within an hour of this happening, I'll tell you right now, the internet is insane. He's already been soy-jacked, okay? You've got the actual killer soy-jack, and the president over here, blood on his face, ear clipped, most likely for the rest of his life, by the way, still given a giant, fucking fist in the air. It is insane. Now, Trump is much like 50 Cent in this situation where, both of them have been shot. They've basically upped their game, and now they're going to be back winning gritties left and right, okay? Literally, Trump can have its own game. Trump bulletproof. It's crazy, dude. It's wild. Speaking of soy jacks, the killer himself has been jacked again. I love missing my shot. Now, I'll say this right now, as far as the memes go, it is one of those situations where, when he was grabbing his ear, he literally was a few, I would say, less than an inch from actually going to God. It is insane how, it almost can be considered divine intervention that Trump actually did miraculously survive this attempt, because the actual shot was just literally off by a hair. It is insane. Now, obviously, other memes have been created. Obviously, I'm not going to show you the Sam Hyde meme, but I will show you breaking. Trump rally shooter has been identified as 36-year-old Minnesota resident Louis Lovog. Fucking Linkara got brought into it somehow. If you wanted the paranormal take from friend of the channel, Chris Bors, the psychic futurist world has been abuzz about something crazy going down July 15th. That's 24 hours from now. Wondering if this Trump assassination was a thing everyone picked up on, or if something bigger is on the horizon in 2 days. Guess we'll find out soon enough. Now, obviously, one of the clips that was really wild out there was this one that I saw from Hassan Piker, actually. Listen to this one right here.
As well as you saw
He's clip farming harder than the new crop of FaZe talent. He's like FaZe Ronaldo. He's clip farming harder than Jinxie. He keeps throwing up his fucking fist.
Been in many of these Trump rallies.
It's over.
One of our colleagues.
Now, I think that's a pretty inflammatory thing to say, but to give him credit where credit's due here, that is possibly the best clip farm that you could do. That is the best image farm one could come up with. Because obviously surviving an attempt like this pretty much solidifies him as the next president of the United States at this moment in time. And I think it's pretty hard for anybody to say that it's not going to be like that. He was already kind of, from my understanding, leading in the polls anyways, but surviving an assassination attempt when you're like getting up literally less than a minute after you've been shot at with your fist in the air, American flag behind you, there are moderates, there are people on the other side of the aisle that would immediately flip over and join you. So clearly it is kind of it is him understanding and playing to the, it is him basically being like a social media, like he understands, optics in a way too. He understands a good opportunity. He understands what is good PR. But obviously, where the statement from Hassan kind of fails is right afterwards you find out that there was actually a casualty. Remember, when a bullet gets fired, it's not shocking that, eventually it has to hit something. And a perfect case scenario could have been if it hit the dirt and just stopped ricocheting and nobody would have been injured. But unfortunately, one of the people that were sitting in the stands behind Trump were killed because of that round. So there was actually a casualty that shouldn't have even existed. Obviously, I'm not even including the killer in this situation because what are you going to fucking expect Secret Service is going to do? Arrest you? No, they're going to dome you, and that's pretty much what it comes down to. Now, obviously, that image exists out there, but for YouTube's terms of services and also for my own mental health and for the mental health of my viewer base, I think showing somebody's, complete skull removed is not worth, okay? Or part of their head removed is not worth it. It's just not an image worth seeing. The shooter got killed. It pretty much is how the things ended. Now, I think it's insane with all the memes that exist. Social media has allowed people to have the most insane takes in real fucking time. This is so insane that I kind of wish we had Twitter for when 9/11 was a thing. Shit, I wish we could go back as far as Abraham Lincoln. Imagine the wild takes back then. Imagine, Twitter being a thing during the JFK assassination or the Reagan attempted assassination. This would be an interesting world to see. Right now, we have literal people processing memes and vitriol and takes in real time, especially when information hasn't even been processed, at all. So obviously, as of now, there have been a few maps that have come out that have been basically detailing how this had happened. So to give a quick idea, this is where Trump would have been standing with the podium and everything, right? Facing his direction, where the mouse is, right? So, where this tree is, that's where he would be facing. Now, interestingly enough, the actual, assassin or would-be assassin was basically perched up right here on this rooftop. So clear view, all right to actual Trump. And, again, missing that shot is one of those things where, you could consider maybe it is divine intervention that God stepped in. Because, yeah, if you were off by a hair, it would have been a whole different story. This would have actually been a serious assassination we would have talked about. This would be something that it's already going into history books, but it could have been a whole lot darker, But anyways, in this situation, obviously you had like Capitol Police, you had the U.S. Secret Service respond back and dispatch the guy right there and then. Now, obviously, there is kind of a weird thing that people have sort of already drawn up conspiracies about. Obviously, like many situations, this is so polarizing nowadays that people have said, maybe this is staged. And I would say that if this was a staged situation, I would say that that would be really stupid on Trump's behalf, okay? Because if this was staged, a lot of federal agencies would have figured it out by now. And staging an assassination where somebody actually has died, unrelated to the situation whatsoever, a civilian, would not be something that would show me any staging had happened. This is a clear, deliberate attempt. And obviously, some would wonder why it is that Secret Service didn't pick up. To give you an idea, you've got a rooftop here, you've got a rooftop there, you've got rooftops there, even though shots from that distance are difficult to make, let me tell you. You've got, rooftops here, you've got rooftops here. This is a situation where obviously if you're, a sniper team, your response time is not going to be laser focused and accurate. It's going to involve a couple seconds. You got to really put yourself in a situation like this. And I hate to bring up a game like Ready or Not, but you have seconds to make a decision. In those seconds, you also go through a bit of shock and understanding as to what's happening. When you hear bullets whizzing, it takes your spotter, your partner, to identify where the shots have been taking place. And then you literally have seconds, and I mean seconds, to, set up your shot, to look down, to make that shot, and basically hope that you hit whatever it is that you're going off at, right? And these things happen within literal seconds. This whole situation, this whole, this whole combat scenario, so to call it, happened literally in 10 to 15 seconds. The human brain takes some time to process. You're going through, I hate to say, a bit of micro trauma in a way too. So yeah, it isn't something that I consider is staged, but it is one of those things where you actually look at it from a real objective lens. It all actually starts to make sense. Some things are as simple as this was a fucking assassination attempt. Now, obviously, as to dial things down, I think it's good to play a game of worst poorly aged thumbnail. Now, here's a Jacksepticeye thumbnail from 7 years ago where he plays a game called Mr. President. If I move the mouse away, that looks terrible. Now, obviously, when games are made like meme-tacular games about situations that age perfectly, it's always worth buying them for a few bucks on Steam and playing them, okay? So to give you a visual representation, this is effectively what had happened. Oh, hell yeah, let me save the man right there, okay? Let me dive in. Oh, shit, he's gonna die, isn't he? Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, that's a visual representation of what it appeared to be. At least his hair survived. There's no way he survived that, dude. What is his skull made out of? Vibranium, bro? What the fuck? Now, obviously, that's a far less serious game than something like JFK Reloaded, which I believe is more educational. Not something that we'll be playing, but it is a game that has a very, very interesting history that you should check out. But yeah, this is one of those scenarios where, a lot of things have poorly aged. Now, obviously, the internet and, well, not really the internet, the FBI, from my understanding, actually identified who this individual was. And the individual in this situation was a person known as Thomas Crooks, a 20-year-old individual. Now, this is what the guy looked like. And what is really scary is, obviously, this is a 20-year-old individual. Now, people had started to look through this person's voting history. Even though they were a minor at the time, I didn't know that minors could do political contributions. But apparently, it is something that happens in the U.S., and they found out he was from the same party that Trump was actually, talking for, right? The Republican Party. And he donated like $15, so it's nothing crazy or anything. Like, he's not like a fucking super PAC donor of the entire party. And mind you, nothing is actually even verified. Like, people just went off by a name basis. There is no actual confirmation because something like this is very fresh. So it's always worth noting that into the videos here. But to understand what's really scary about the situation too, and one of the reasons why, it is worth talking about. It really shows you how radicalized and how split the world really has become. I would say back in the year 2016, I probably would never have expected a scenario like this at all. Even though the world was relatively split back then too. But now, this is one of the most insane presidential cycles we've ever seen because there's so much of a culture war and there is genuinely so much radicalization. I think what's really scary to me is not only did somebody unattached to this entire situation die in the crowds, but an individual as young as 20 was radicalized enough by whatever they read on the internet, by the doom and gloom world we live in, that this was a situation they decided to partake in. Now, the cost of getting the enlightened centrist charge, obviously Trump even laughed about a similar situation where Nancy Pelosi's husband was assaulted by an individual, another actual attempted assassination, and he laughed about it, on his side of the aisle whatsoever. So it really feels like when it comes to the world of politics, I think every political commentator I've ever seen on YouTube, Twitch, or even on television would have been a TMZ reporter, would have been on DramaTube, would have been anywhere else if the political grift hadn't worked. I really feel like in a lot of these situations, no matter which side you go to, it's become so team sports that at this point, we're just kind of laughing at these situations. So I'm not going to sit here and morally be outraged or morally grandstand. At the end of the day, what I witnessed is something that is incredibly disturbing to see happen, right? You know, and at the end of the day, right, like a person lost their life, and another person who was radicalized at the age of 20 decided to follow through with a plan that obviously would have ended with them gone. And that's just unfortunately the situation there. Now, there's obviously been more stuff, like apparently the guy had like bomb making equipment, so it could have actually been worse. So it is going to be a time to see, you know, what the media is going to blame, you know, whether they go on 4chan's poll and they find out, oh, maybe they've been reading the image boards too much. Maybe that's what threw them in. Or maybe the feds had an idea about this person, but they never decided to act on it. It's again going to be one of those situations where it just serves as a pissing match between two sides that will never ever get along at this point and will just continue to form more divisiveness. But hey, at the end of the day, this is why I don't partake in the political topics whatsoever, because I really don't find much to gain out of it. I always find that anytime you discuss something or try to come to some, you know, actual like mediance between each other, it just doesn't, it never works, okay? So that's why I personally don't really engage with it. This was just one of those examples where a literal historical event just happened. Now, I think witnessing, you know, historical events like this is something that I don't really enjoy, okay? I think most people don't. I think we all kind of yearn for a time when things were a little bit more simpler. You know, it really reminds me of like back in like the 2000s, you know, before 2010 even. You know, things were serious. People were at each other's throats. But it was never a point where, like, you know, parties and politicians were this cutthroat against each other, and we actually had assassination attempts. The last assassination attempt, from my understanding, was back in Ronnie Reagan's era in the 80s. And now we're reliving history once again in 2024 with another presidential candidate, or just a presidential candidate, not even an actual president yet, actually have a bullet graze their ear and survive by some form of divine intervention. Anyways, this is me, Mutahar, and yeah, wild day indeed. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.